I'm Nandini, as Owen very nicely introduced. Before starting, I'm just taking one extra moment to say that I will be mentioning a few things. I will be mentioning the LGBTQ community, trans non-binary people, their stories, and stories of mental health. Just wanted to issue that warning before. So, being on stage feels like coming home to me. It's my favorite place to be, and it's always been. That stage was just like this one. The same anticipation, the same exhilaration, because that day changed so much for me. It was 2019. 6 months into my gap year, I'd attended roughly 200 open mics, and it had all come down to this one moment. May 17th, 2019, I hosted my very first open mic show, and I called it Ruhaniyat. Now, Ruhaniyat is an Urdu word, which means soulful expression. I mean, that is what I was going for. That day was the first time in my life that somebody had walked up to me and thanked me for creating a space for their story to be heard. There were so many artists that walked in that day as individuals, but I know that they walked out as a community. After the show, I moved to Germany, forgot all about open mics and Rohaniat and everything that came with it, until 2020. I was back in India, 6 months into yet another gap year. This time, there were no open mics or exploratory journeys, just the looming despair of a pandemic. Every single day, the news reported increasing death tolls and stories of unemployment. But what caught my attention the most was the lives of artists. Every single day, more and more artists were losing their entire livelihood. Just because of the COVID lockdown, they had no means of performing, and of course, they didn't have the satisfaction of the performance either. Soon after, I was discussing this with a friend, and we started laying out the groundwork and finding ways to help these struggling artists. I mean, we thought of filming a documentary. We traveled extensively. We talked to investors. We took filming workshops online. And we brainstormed for months trying to find a solution. But we didn't have the right resources, enough funds, or the public health conditions to proceed with any of that. And we'd almost given up on the entire idea of it. That was until January of 2021. So we were all winding down at this chai tapri. What's a chai tapri? It's this tea stall in India. You find them literally everywhere in New Delhi. There are these tiny stalls with this big pot of chai bubbling in the corner. It's amazing. And it was a winter evening, and we were all, huddled up having chai. And we were discussing music and poetry. And I started humming the lines of a song. That's when we saw Trishali. That is her tea stall, and that is Trishali. She was this small, petite girl standing in the corner. She was the daughter of the lady that ran the tea stall. They earned less than maybe $7 to $8 a day. But honestly, she saw us, she saw me singing, and she nervously approached me. Her eyes were like brimming with inspiration. So she walks up to us, and she asks me if we'd like to hear her sing. And I can say today that that singular stroke of her confidence changed our entire vision for Rohaniat. We decided to host another show. Hearing her sing that day, we had goosebumps. All socioeconomic limitations melted away, underneath which we found common ground and shared purpose through art. Honestly, I kept going back week after week to teach her the little music that I could. But on stage, her passion was imminent in every single note of her singing. And it surged this immense sense of pride within me. But her voice clearly impacted so many others. Because her first on-stage experience, it got her a standing ovation in a gathering of 100 people. First on-stage experience. But driven by her story and her passion, the Ruhaniyat project started shaping into this initiative. That, by the way, is Rohaniat written in Hindi. But Ruhaniyat started turning into this initiative to foster a sense of community and become this space for judgment-free expression. Soon after, we started expanding the space to invite more and more artists to come and share their stories. I mean, 2 shows in, we'd heard so many different stories from such a diverse mix of people. We'd engaged with autistic children. We'd heard the stories of domestic abuse survivors. We saw trans and non-binary people weaving their stories into such incredible poetry. There were people speaking in different languages, performing in different languages. There was large-scale representation from the underrepresented LGBTQ+ community in India. That is saying a lot. And each of those people were so supported by every member of our team. It made me realize that artists were starting to talk to each other, to connect with each other. Started realizing that art can be connected with a sense of community. It can be associated directly. We started expanding international shows, started getting published in so many newspapers in so many different languages. And all of that made me realize the potential of art, music, poetry to tap into emotional well-being. Personally, my journey with mental health has been this long-standing battle of wits. At one point, I had replaced every single trauma-inducing thought in my head with music. I used music. I abused music. It was my personal escape to feel everything at once and nothing at all. So, actually, there are some pieces of music that I still can't go back to because they remind me of a terrible place in my life. But you see, that space that I created was just for me. It was personal, it was intimate, and it helped me coexist with my victories and my failures. So my point here is that creative expression can be a very personal experience. Or it could be something that you engage with in a community setting. It's all enough if you let it sink in and you let yourself feel. So with Ruhaniyat, we tried to expand that space and invite more and more people to come in. There were so many artists with such beautiful stories, but the beauty of it actually lied in the way that each of them had an entirely unique way of making that space completely their own. So after one of the shows, one performer's mother wanted to talk to me. About what? But she sat me down and said, Nandini, my child has always been categorized and labeled as disabled or special needs. It's not uncommon in India. And that day on stage, you invited him as just an artist, and you treated him like one. So thank you for making my child feel normal. And that day, I honestly realized how ubiquitous art can be. I mean, that day I realized that there is an artist within every single one of us. You could secretly be a painter, a sculptor, a writer, a poet, a dancer, a singer, a a theater artist, a drama queen. But more often than not, in your everyday life, you could just be an incredible listener, a reader, a spectator, an audience member, just absorbing all the art around you. I mean, if we could just tap into that potential of using creative expression to our own benefit, I feel like it could have this stabilizing effect on our collective mental health. Why? Because it's a way of releasing pent-up energy and negative emotion and creating something so beautiful out of it. I mean, I can't wait to see all the other stories that Ruhaniyat has yet to unravel. But it's only possible because each one of those people took the leap of faith, and there are more out there, who are trusting their instinct and exploring their talent, and maybe getting a sweet deal of emotional well-being with it. If we all did our part and encouraged just one more person to do so, I think the effect of it could be exponential. I'm not asking you to build communities of art to benefit a lot of people, no. The quantity of people aided is never going to outperform the quality of impact created. So today, just for a minute, try and think of one person who you think could benefit from creating or consuming art. And honestly, if the person that you just thought about is you or someone that you care about, my job here is done. As a child, my parents kept singing this one song to me, and they kept singing it, and it was in my head all the time. But today, I feel that it couldn't be more apt to what I'm trying to express. Loosely translated, this song, it was a family heirloom, and it was composed within the family. But loosely translated, the verse says, "Keep walking on and find your path, despite the obstacles. With every new ray of sunshine, awaken your own talent. Explore your own talent. Awaken your own talent. Be your own sun. Be your own guiding light. Be your own sun." And today, to end this talk and this wonderful TED event, I would really love for the opportunity to be able to sing those few lines for you in our language, Hindi. The song is called "Apne Surya Swayam Ban Jao," which is the chorus, "Be your own sun." चलो न मिटते पद चिन्हों पर, रुको न विघ्नों बाधाओं पर, नित्य नई आलोक रश्मि से अपनी प्रतिभा स्वयं जगाओ, अपनी प्रतिभा स्वयं जगाओ, अपनी प्रतिभा स्वयं जगाओ, अंतरतम का दीप जलाओ, अपने सूर्य स्वयं बन जाओ, अपने सूर्य स्वयं बन जाओ, अपने सूर्य स्वयं बन जाओ. Thank you.